What's good, Super G fam? The Jonathan D. Epstein here, founder of Super Glorious, and you're locked in for another episode of Partners and Plugs. This is where we cut through the noise and really get to know the folks who are not just in the culture, but actively building it, whether it's fashion, business, or anything in between. Today, we've got a guest whose story is the definition of putting in the work. We're talking about Kenan Wilson, co-founder of Courtside Kicks. Now, if you're from New England, you probably already know the name. But what you might not know is how this all started back in 2020. It was three friends, Kenan, Danny, and Spencer Reith, with a shared love of sneakers and an idea. No big investors, no fancy loans, just a vision and that undeniable grind. They kicked things off in a humble spot, just reselling sneakers. But they quickly realized it wasn't just about moving product. It was about creating an experience. Think about clean design, a super curated selection, and a vibe that truly respected the culture. Fast forward to today, and Courtside Kicks isn't just a local spot anymore. They've blown up to 5 locations across Massachusetts and Rhode Island, including their flagship store in Copley Place. They've been on Boston Magazine, CBS News, the whole 9 yards. But honestly, the real win is how they became one of the go-to trusted names in the game. Kenan's journey is way more than just selling sneakers. It's about betting on yourself when no one else is, understanding your unique lane, and building something genuinely impactful with the right people by your side. It's about that first big leap, how you scale with integrity, and keeping your vision clear even when things get wild. So tap in. We're about to get deep with Kenan from Courtside Kicks. All right. Well, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I hope you like the studio.
No, I love the studio.
Yeah, we've got our baby Milo here. So let's talk about the origins of Courtside.
Yeah,
take us back to 2020. How did Courtside really get started?
Yeah, Courtside it kind of goes little quickly. It goes back. Me, Spencer, and Danny. We all went to the same elementary school, middle school, and high school. We all grew up together. So it was, separately, but obviously growing in our own lanes. When high school came around, we all found the love for business. I think we were kind of in our own individual interest lanes, but sooner or later we found sneakers, and that was a meeting point for us three. We started to realize that sneakers, there's more to sneakers than just sneakers. There's a business behind it. I think, I got into sneakers way back in 2014 when, basketball shoes, Nike basketball shoes were really big. And the rest is history. We started to resell sneakers online primarily. And sooner or later, we kind of found a retail setting where we could sell our shoes in. So that gave us kind of the introduction into retail and sneakers with retail. And sooner or later, we kind of hatched the idea of creating a storefront that we wanted to see in our area when we were just enthusiasts.
And where was your first location?
Our first location was in Natick Mall.
Natick Mall.
Natick Mall, yes.
Okay. What was the first we might be into something moment onto something when you were starting to think about retail, or you found your first spot? What was that? Were that one moment where it's like, okay, we can do this?
Yeah, I think first, being 18-year-olds starting in the industry, it was really hard to sell credibility. I think the mall kind of looked at us like, hey, you guys are 18 years old. How are you going to do this? Once they started to believe the vision that we had, I think that's when we also realized, like, hey, we have something here. It wasn't just a far-fetched idea. So December of 2020, we started reaching out to malls. It was actually November of 2020, we started reaching out to malls. We did a couple tours in the Natick Mall, looking at different spaces. And obviously by March 2021, we opened doors. And so that process from December to February was an all-out sprint. We really wanted to get open as soon as possible, which, funny enough, now that we think about it, those first couple months out of the year aren't the best. So, it's good to see the low point when we first started, but, even when we first started, it was, that's also our first day was great, and we realized, wow, we have something here. So.
Yeah, I remember going in, I think you had just been open a month or two.
Yes.
And talking to Spencer and being like,
Yes.
damn, he's a baby.
Yeah.
And I kind of walked out. But yeah, I do remember the way the store was laid out, the clean lines, the information that they gave me about the sneakers, and when I told them what I was looking for, my size, the customer service was great. So before Courtside Kicks, were you doing something that you could envision stepping into becoming, a larger scale retailer in this industry? Like what was the nucleus of okay, we could do this?
Mm-hmm. So first we kind of first started off by selling really the high-end sneakers that sell out very quickly. So the Yeezys that, obviously back in 2020 it was going crazy, waiting in lines at concepts, doing all of that. Then when COVID hit, we kind of switched our business model individually, where we were going after the shoes that were discounted. So it was, we're making a little bit less on each shoe, but we're getting a lot more volume. So it kind of gave us this holistic view of the sneaker industry, from the bricks, as we called them, to obviously the high-end sneakers that are selling out like that. So
were you selling Pandas like hand over fist?
Honestly, funny enough, Pandas, it's crazy because Pandas weren't even out actually by the time we opened the store. It was before this. We were selling Nike Vapor Maxes that we were getting for $80, selling for $100, but we were able to get 100 of the pairs. And so it was interesting to see the holistic view of sneakers, from the things that you can get on discount to the things that are instantly selling out where someone's laughing at you if you're asking for a discount. So, it was interesting. And that was kind of the switch for us to say, hey, we know this whole view of the sneaker industry. I think it was a knowledge point where we were like, hey, we know a lot about what we're doing. Why not kind of join together and create something bigger? So,
yeah, it's. I didn't even know when we ran into each other several months ago that you had 4 locations, and when you're a multi-unit operator, there's a lot behind the scenes. I think people don't realize what it takes on, in Kenan's, from where Kenan's looking at it, just to make sure 4 stores are opened on time, that if someone has ordered something or you've shipped from 3 different locations across the United States, to make sure you have your fingers on all aspects of the business. So it becomes a little more complicated, but also you just have the right processes.
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about from the hustle to the business. There's a big jump between selling sneakers and operating storefronts. What pushed you to go from when you were just selling online and you said, we need a retail store? Was there something you said, you know what, we need to validate what we're doing and build a brand?
I think fall of 2020, we just had graduated high school. So it was in kind of the middle of COVID.
You said high school.
Yes.
High school. If you're watching this, high school.
High school.
4 stores now. High school.
So we started selling at different consignment stores across the nation. So we kind of started to get our feet, wet with the whole retail setting, and we realized, hey, sneakers sell in retail settings. People like to be able to try them on, have an experience behind just talking to the sales associate or whoever's working about sneakers, educate them. And especially in the Boston area, it's very big to educate the consumer on, hey, this is why this shoe goes for so much, or this is why, it was a collaboration between these 2 brands and they have this synergy. So it was big for us to create an experience, and we realized that we went to stores around our area, but we didn't exactly get what we were looking for in terms of the experience. So we realized, as business...
Are there any stores that you think of now that you kind of will, when you're thinking about where you are in the competitive marketplace, that you think do a really good job? It doesn't have to be in the Northeast, but ones
Yeah.
you visited or ones you interact with, because from my perspective, there are a lot of sneakers that come and go. They reach out to us. They're interested in specific pairs, and then you never hear back from them. They're 6 months later, they're closed.
Yes.
So if you were to think about from 2020 to today, are there any that, these guys are doing a good job?
Funny enough, when we first opened, there wasn't too many stores that we could really look up to. I think as time went on, we really realized that we visited a Kith store down in Miami on Miami Beach. And it's funny because we walked in there and the customer service, the layout of the store, the whole vibe of the store down there and at all Kith locations was amazing. And we realized like this is exactly what we want to emulate.
Is this the one on Ocean, the one near the W Hotel?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we realized we went down there. We saw a celebrity kind of, Aiden Ross. Funny enough, we were just shopping, and Danny is a really big Aiden Ross fan, and he kind of looked and he was like, "That's Aiden Ross." Like just shopping in the Kiss store.
Aiden Ross is the guy in the piano.
Streamer. He's a
Streamer.
big streamer.
Okay, Adrian Brody. If you haven't seen the movie, it won the
good
Golden Globe and Academy
yeah.
Award. But I'm way off topic. Okay, so you're in Kith.
And we realized that Kith is what we want to look up to. And funny enough, nowadays we try not to exactly have someone we look up to, because it's all about creating your own vibe in an authentic way. So, from our social media posts, we used to be like, hey, we need to make it clean and concise, but we realized that that's not the best for us. So it started off with a big inspiration. And then as you realize that you can't follow the inspiration too much because you kind of veer off from what your authentic path could be. So there's a bunch of stores. I think Kith was like the first one that we were like, hey, this is exactly what the experience we want to bring to New England within our streetwear store.
Yeah, I don't know when Kith was founded, but I can remember they moved to different locations in New York. When they opened up Miami, now they have the new Miami store, and at like the Paris Kith is gorgeous. But the customer service, I don't think I've had a bad customer service experience in any of their locations. And a woman that I'm friendly with is now running their New York store. She moved from Miami. Wow. So shout out to Momo if you're watching this. What about self-doubt and the vision? You're now 5 years into this. Do you ever get moments where, we need to change the business model, or you're just like, I don't know, can I do this? Or is it part of being an entrepreneur? You're just kind of how you deal with it?
Exactly. I think yeah, perfect. I think it's part of being an entrepreneur where there's always going to be ups and downs, not in terms of your business, but in terms of your mindset. There's always this race and, internal race to obviously feed your ambition. So I think there's always this, tossing and turning to see how can I improve this business? How has the business that I've grown, you almost have this attachment to your previous mindset where you're continuously trying to feed that mindset, but also trying to improve the business and create new paths and new thought processes to improve what you have. So I think it's part of being an entrepreneur, but self-doubt, even from the start, there was like, hey, is this going to work? Then I think our first day, we absolutely killed it. And we were like, wait, this is actually going to work a little bit, not even too well, but, in terms of our, funny enough, little tidbit is we had to kind of renegotiate our lease at the Natick Mall because we were doing too well. And so, you set this, in the malls.
Simon Malls isn't going to watch this, right?
No, honestly, and they're Brookfield too.
They
would honestly be like, yeah, that's. And so at malls, you set kind of standards for how you're going to do, and you let them all know. And we set this really low standard because we thought like, this is what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. And from our first day on, we were like, oh, they're going to think that we lied to them. And it's like, no, so we went to them. We were like, hey, we're doing way better than we expected, which is obviously the hope. And so, we had to kind of figure things out, which was interesting, but also a great thing to really look back on to say, hey, we did better than we expected, and we've continuously moved the mark from, our previous expectations.
Okay, so right out of the gate, you have some immediate emotion.
Yes.
Tell me about an early mistake that you had to overcome, and what was the mistake, and how did you overcome it? But what did you learn from it?
Yeah. I think inventory management was a big thing from the start.
Yeah,
Knowing
I think
what
for
to
most
have.
most resellers that are of scale, it's a huge problem. Staffing, managing, yeah. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so the inventory management, I think, was now we really crunch data to know like this is what sells at what time of day, and I think all of those things have kept us in business. And using that data.
So you literally know during different, like on the weekends, different days when you'll have more foot traffic in different locations.
Exactly. And those
Wow.
data points are something that I think a lot of stores don't do. Utilizing that data, even using AI these days, it's the points are at your fingertips, and if you can utilize them, it keeps your business open. I know there's a lot of stores closing these days, and I wonder if they're using the data properly. But back then, we weren't using that data. We were kind of just saying, I think people are going to like this. I think people are going to like this. So
you also need the volume to have that type of data. So that was a blessing in disguise.
yes, yes. So having that volume to be able to build up that data, and then so it's a double-edged sword where you build up the data. You need to have the people to do that, which comes into like the marketing and making sure people know that you're in the mall, and then building that data and then utilizing it. So I think that's a big thing that we kind of didn't do from the start. So that was a problem that we had to kind of overcome and learn from, because we were buying this, buying that, but it's like, are people actually going to like that? And it even goes down to the sizes that people are buying. So instead of buying sizes
So you're saying, so is there a typical size that you'll stock more of? Like I'm a 10 and a half, and I used to recall, now that I have partners and plugs, I don't have to worry about it. But, 10 and a halves would be gone. Like, nope, no 10 and a half. So you can have a 9 or an 11 and a half. So is there a sweet spot where you just immediately, okay, if we're going to buy these shoes, or we're going to stock them, or when people come in and want to consign with us, that you immediately go right away? Or does it vary now more because your customer base is so varied?
It's funny, it's been streamlined a little bit. So we're buying a lot of size 9.5 to 10.5, 9.5 to 11, and then for grade school sizes 6, 6.5, 7. So it's the shoes that thankfully the manufacturers and the brands are making the most of. So we're able to get more of them than normal pairs. But I think nowadays, yes, our customer base has expanded, but we still see the concentration on those best sizes.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit more. You talked about like big moments. You had Natick. When did you start to decide that you wanted to scale? Like, okay, we need a second location because people are driving and we're finding that people are coming from Boston, or, what was that moment when you knew you needed a second location and a third location? How did that happen?
Yeah, so first, the Burlington Mall, we're all from Burlington, so we always wanted to have a store in our hometown mall. The Burlington Mall reached out to us early on when we first started, and we weren't exactly ready for expansion, but we realized that, yes, there was people that are driving, but also we knew that there were stores. Champs has a store in Natick Mall, and they also have one in the Burlington Mall. So we kind of took that mass retail view and applied it to like ourselves. So we realized that, hey, there's people driving from Burlington to Natick, but also there's people that aren't driving from Burlington to Natick just to see our store.
Okay.
There's people coming from New Hampshire to the Burlington Mall.
So you had people coming once they knew you were there from how far away? Half an hour, hour?
I would say hour for sure, because I think one thing when we opened, I would ask people, I'm very big on asking, like, hey, where are you coming from? How did you hear about us? And a lot of people are coming from Providence, Rhode Island, which was interesting to me because I hadn't gone to Providence like that. before opening the stores. And so I was like, wow, you're coming from Providence to the Natick Mall? Like, I grew up with the Burlington Mall, so I didn't have to go to any other mall, because now when I talk to people, they're like, Burlington Mall. So it's interesting to see that people explore different malls outside of their exact range or reach.
Well, I think the suburban market is like that. I mean, being based in Boston, you just walk everywhere and you know where the spots are.
Exactly.
But if you're in a town west of the city, or like any town outside of a major city, you're getting in a car.
Yeah.
And you might hit 3 shops that you drove 40 miles, in the course of a day.
So, I think the moment was when we realized that people aren't just they're traveling for our store, but also there's a lot of people that aren't traveling to our store, and expanding kind of that reach. Someone goes to the Burlington Mall consistently, they might not get to the Natick Mall. Even if they hear about us, they might say, it's another 30 minutes. So now we're saying, okay, we should expand to the Burlington Mall, not just to pull from the people that are coming from Burlington to Natick, but more so to get people that aren't going from Burlington to Natick,
right,
that are going from New Hampshire to Burlington. Or
So did you start filling in? I don't want to beat a dead horse, but as you started with your second location, did you start looking at how can we build, assuming you knew you wanted to do 3, 4, 5 locations, to look at certain demographics and populations? So you said, okay, we need to drop one at this shopping plaza.
Exactly. So, median income, is a big thing that we've started to look at. So we don't go in a place where people aren't exactly spending on high-end luxury streetwear. So looking at that, looking at population, and then looking at mall foot traffic. The malls we're obviously all in malls, and they kind of have that generated foot traffic already. So it's easier to analyze when the mall has the data points to say, hey, we get this amount of visitors per year.
Right. And for those watching, when you will be looking for a location and you're talking to malls, the larger groups that own these malls have a ton of people in financial planning and analysis that cut all their data of who's going there, how far they drive. So it's to entice people like Kenan and his group why it would make sense, and give you psychographic and demographic information so that you can make a decision about, with this
right
rent
for us?
number, do we think we can sell enough pairs? Like there's a real science behind it, and it's not like, I have a ton of people that want to consign shoes or we can buy them. Like you have to build the business model and make sure that it's going to work for you.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about community and brand culture. You mentioned that Courtside Kicks has become more than a store. What does your community mean to you?
Yeah, I think when we first started Courtside, it was, how do we help the buyer and the seller come to a place where first, not only can they interact with like-minded people, but how can they have fun when they come to the store? How can I allow them to say, oh, let's go to Courtside Kicks with a smile on their face? And before we started the store, we realized that, hey, there's not a lot of places that make me smile when I walk in and, get me excited to go to the mall, get me excited to go to their store. And so I think
a lot of sneaker places, you feel like you're getting vibed the minute you walk in. And if they don't like your shoes, which, I mean, obviously everyone loves my shoes.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah. I mean, can we talk more about my shoes and get off the interview? No? Okay. Sorry, I got totally diverted. So you're building your brand. You're, what you're finding that the customers, why they're coming in. So does that evolve over time?
For sure.
And because talk to me about that, because I feel like your first store and then Copley, the color palette's similar, but they're very different.
Very different. So I think when we first opened the store, it was more so, hey, how do we first get ourselves off the ground? So let's only stock the shoes that really, really people like, or at least we think they like. Nowadays, it's, hey, if someone comes in, they want to see something new. They want to see the shoe that they've seen online, or the clothing piece they've seen online for, the past couple months. Now they're seeing it in person. My favorite comment in the store is, oh, like, I saw this online. We just got a pair of the dirty Air Force Ones that Nike released. And the only reason I got one pair is so people can say like, oh, like I saw this online, like this is real. So it's a really cool experience for
What size are they?
11. Oh. Yeah.
Figured I'd ask.
Yeah, dang it. They run a little big too, so I was like,
forget it.
10,
Might fit you, Tony.
So it's evolved over time where also now I'm seeing that we have a space where we can bring like-minded people together, not just within the retail hours. So that's a big thing in 2025, 2026 going forward is how do we get events coming into the store? How do we bring people together without them feeling that they have to shop the store? We have a space. We have 5 different spaces across New England. Why not utilize them to bring more people together in a more relaxed setting rather than, sometimes people come in and they feel like they have to buy or spend money, which is not at all what we want them to feel like.
It's interesting because back, 30 years ago, in New York, like the A-Life Rivington Club, for example, they'd have events all the time. And they were super down and dirty, like 20, 30 people. But, like the Wu-Tang Clan was there once. And, you wouldn't necessarily go there that often to shop, but they had all sorts of times you go and hang out, which then just built a relationship with the brand. So you knew if you were going out on a Saturday or when you had free time, you'd swing by, even if you weren't looking for anything, just to say what's up and see if there's anything that, you might be interested in buying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. That's a great example.
How do you stay grounded as your business scales? I mean, you're now 4 locations, which is a lot. Like, how do you stay grounded and not kind of get ahead of yourself?
Yeah. Actually, we're at 5 locations now, but
5?
5.
So I've been saying 4?
A couple times.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
all right. Sorry about that.
We were
I haven't had my Sanka this morning, and Tony did not go to Starbucks.
Sooner or later, actually, we'll probably be cutting more. But anyway, staying grounded. Yeah, I think there was a time when we first started where we were on the ground, really hearing what the customer wanted on a daily basis. Then as we grew our team, we kind of faded back and really focused on the processes behind the scene. And as we were doing that, we realized we haven't heard what the customer wants. We haven't experienced the customer experience. And so first we, even just going to different stores around the nation, whether it's a sneaker store or a retailer, we really pay attention to how we are as a consumer and what we're looking for. And, it's really hard as a founder of a store to go into a store and not feel biased, analyzing every little thing. But nowadays it's, hey, we need to get back on the floor. We need to get back into the store. Sometimes we work out of our office, but we realize that, the office can only give us so much hard data. So we've had to, make sure that we're swinging by the stores, asking people for feedback. I think when we first started, we weren't asking people for a lot of their feedback. And that's a big thing. So if I have a great conversation with a customer that comes in, I ask them, how did you enjoy the store? What would you want to see out of the store the next time you come? And so asking those questions first makes the person feel valued because their feedback is valued. And it helps us gives us data to say, hey, I had a person come in that says we need to start carrying X brand, whatever it is. And so that feedback really helps us stay grounded and stay in tune with what the customer really wants.
How do you protect your brand's personality as you grow? Or does it evolve? In retail, you have to, my belief is you have to have a vision for how you're going to grow. But it feels like from the conversation that with all the customer information that you're gleaning, that your brand personality is evolving, or is it? Is it?
It is, and I think evolving is a good way to put it. I think in this day and age, I think the trends of whether what we're selling and also just the customer experience, that all changes. I think we're realizing that even if less people are coming into the store, the people that are coming in are really looking for an experience. So I think, there was a time where we were getting so many people coming to the store after COVID because they want an experience. They've been inside for a long time. So it was very like touch and go, try to make the customer feel happy, try to make this customer feel happy. I think it's slowed down in a good way where we're tailoring who walks into the store, where they're really interested in this stuff, whether it's our window displays that bring them in, whether they already know about us. I think our personality has to evolve over time to make sure that we're getting the customer what they want as their wants evolve. Yeah, so
That makes a lot of sense. I don't have the next one, creative vision, so I won't move, so we can still keep shooting. Okay. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about creative vision and the style game.
yeah.
Courtside, for those of you that haven't been to any of their stores, super clean, minimal aesthetic. You walk in, you can see all the shoes. You're not inundated by footwear. I've been into sneaker shops where you almost want to leave the minute you get in because it's so overwhelming. And the visual noise just, kind of makes me very dismissive of even shopping. Where did that vision come from? Like, how did you decide this is how we want the stores to look?
That's a good question. I think it was...
Thank you. I have a lot more.
I figured. I think it was pretty organic. I don't think there was a time where we were like, we have to set up the store this way, but we made sure it was all going back to what we would have wanted out of a store. So right now we split up the shoes by model, we split up the clothing by brand, and then we kind of tailor the brands and the placement of the brands to say, hey, a lot of people shop this one brand. They might be interested in XYZ. So it took a while.
The planogram, which there are planogram scientists that learn based on time of day, which aisles, like in a supermarket or in a Staples, how people will walk through a store and what the likelihood of, if it's eye level or below eye level. That's, really drilling down, but those are things that have to be considered.
Yes.
Because you could have your highest margin, greatest number of skewed sneakers that will sell in a location in your store where people's eye just don't travel to. They don't even know you had them.
Exactly. I just did a remodel at our South Shore location. And, my team there, they were helping me with it. And I was pretty much teaching them master class on not even interior design, but, merchandising. And I obviously haven't taken any classes from it, but over the years, I've started to realize like, hey, we put these shoes at eye level. And that's funny that you say that because, my team was looking at me like I was just moving things around, putting a little bit more shoes out.
Right.
And they were like, and then I put something one place and then I realized no, because the person's going to walk in and they're going to see this one. They need to get enticed by this one so they can see this one and this one. So
right.
It's a thing that takes a while. Obviously I've only been in the business for 4 years now, but I think even within those 4 years, it's been eye-opening to see how the customer interacts with different brands and different placements because we move something.
True science to it. Like back in the day, Colette in one of my favorite stores ever, Nike Lab, which closed on Mercer Street. God, there's so many. You knew once you came in that there was a lot of thought and even perhaps data analysis to know where they should place things, how they lay out. Like the Boston Concepts, super intentional about how they merchandise. And you almost know when you go in, if you want to go look for something, even if you're not shopping for a specific sneaker or a piece of clothing, where you should go, where on the rack they'll most likely be every single time when you hit it up a couple times, or a store that you like a couple times in a month and they move something, you're like, whoa. Where's the Bathing Ape? Where's the Asics?
Yes, it happens. Funny, like
where's the Bathing Ape?
I opened the store. We had an after-hours appointment, which we do on occasion, and I had moved the store around. This is at Copley Place, and someone was going on vacation the next day, so we opened up for him to make sure he He was running late from a haircut. We were going to close. And, he messaged us. He was like, hey, I need these. It was funny. It was an A6 too. He was like, I need these. And, I know you guys are closing. Can you stay open? And we stayed open for him. And within that time that he was traveling, I kind of moved some things around just to get some eyes on some of our newer brands. And he came in immediately, and he had been there like 2 days before. And he came in, and he was like, you guys changed things around. And it was cool for me to hear that, because it almost shows that first you were paying attention. When you came into the store, you were paying attention to the layout in a subconscious way. Mm-hmm. And then he came in again, and he was like, things have changed. So it's cool that people are getting familiar with the store and the store layout, but it's also cool to see that live reaction of, oh, you guys have changed things around. I like this setup.
Yep. So let's like build on that. Mm-hmm. What brands or people influence your personal taste right now? So you're buying things that the consumer might like, but are there certain brands or people that are influencing your own personal taste? And a lot of times, having Super G is going to be in its 4th year soon. Mm-hmm. My personal taste has evolved tremendously, but I'm very deliberate and conscious of when I'm out in an industry event or out somewhere where I know I'm going to be seen, of how I dress intentionally. Mm-hmm. But when you're in a retail environment like that and people are shopping and you're trying to see how they move, and you're really into a new brand, or you're like, I love these shoes, do you try to, put them somewhere? Like, talk to your partner and say, I want to buy a size run of this, or we got to find these. And are there people that you follow or that in the city or in New York or in different major, cities around the United States that you follow because you'd be like, oh, these jellyfish that Pharrell was just wearing at the show last week at Paris Fashion Week, like, we need to get those because these are insane. Like, so how does that all come together?
Yeah, I think when I first started in sneakers and streetwear, I was buying anything that I really just liked in terms of like my visual. I would see it and I like it. Now I think my style and my taste has evolved to look deeper into a brand or whatever I am wearing, to say, does it represent who I am as a person, my likes and dislikes? Kith is a good example. Ronnie does a bunch of really tasteful collabs with things that he emulates with. So, whether it's Marvel, whether it's, even a Kith Cheerios collab, there's different things that
Kith Captain Crunch was amazing.
Captain Crunch, like, there's things that I enjoy being a consumer of that brand because it's thought out.
So the Courtside Kicks Depends undergarment collab is not happening?
I was thinking about it,
Okay.
Yeah. Sooner or later, maybe.
I heard rumors. I mean, I'm at that age where I might have to consider that, so,
Friends and family only.
Friends and family only, yeah.
But it's, I think when I started, it was very surface level, and, I think I can say that confidently, and I can admit that confidently to say, hey, I loved this brand because I liked how it looked. Now it's more so, hey, I liked this brand because I like what it stands for. And I align, I think a part of growing up and a part of even, I'm 23 now. When I was 18, I didn't exactly know too much about myself. So I think growing up and really understanding your values as a person should align with your fashion tastes. So, when someone says the cliche, wear what you like or wear what you feel confident in, I think it goes deeper to say, wear things that you align with, because that's what's showing, I think people say fashion is a very big creative platform, and it can only be a creative platform if you use it to be. You can be very surface level to say, hey, I just liked this and I wore it. But there's a deeper meaning to say, I liked it because of this, and that ties in with my personality because of this. So I'm very outgoing, so I liked that t-shirt because it has this big graphic on it. Or, it could be the opposite where it's like, hey, I'm outgoing. I almost want my fashion to dim me down. So I like to wear something basic. So I think aligning your self expression, your likes and dislikes should align with the values that you have as a person.
Okay. So looking ahead, What's next for Courtside Kicks? What's
Yeah.
in store?
Honestly, I think the past 4 years we've grown this brand. This past 4 years we've grown this company. And I think as time goes on, we're really trying to hone in on creating our brand and community. People that like us and why, and we want to ask, why do you guys like us so we can lean into that? People say, I love your storefront. It's an aesthetic look. It's an aesthetic feel. I feel good. I feel confident coming into the store. Let's lean into that to say, hey, well, do you want to come in after hours for this little event where you can meet and chat with like-minded people? And creating those spaces for people is something that is a huge step for us, because I think that's kind of like the fun step.
Yeah. So you're talking about like more locations, new categories, because events, you can do a lot of different things with events, and I don't want to go down that road because we'll be here for hours. But are you already envisioning another location, or do you want to expand more into clothes? Like, are there things that you have talked with your partners? You're like, okay, these are things in the next 6 months, 12 months, a year, year and a half. Like, this is our direction.
Yeah. So I think first, new categories. I think the industry is shifting in a way where people are really looking for their whole outfit needs, whether it's a bag, accessories. So, when we first started, we weren't selling any accessories. Now it's one of our main focuses going forward to say, hey, we need to strengthen
I know a
this
guy
category
that has a lot of
bunch.
accessories.
And so things like that, that's huge. Just for also it expands our customer base to say, hey, a kid comes in and they're like, I get this all the time. They're like, what can I get for $20? And it's like, well, you can't really get anything for $20, but now you can get Supreme socks for $20. Now you can get Supreme, a Supreme accessory for $20. So first, it expands our customer base, and then it makes it more fun for the consumer to say, oh, I can get this little chop skis or chalk skis.
Tchotchke. Tchotchke. It's Yiddish.
Yes. Yeah. So, having those little things in the store is huge. So expanding categories, expanding our brand awareness through events, and then new locations is tricky. I think we have the operation in terms of opening a store down, but it really has to speak to us. The place really has to speak to us, so we're really
There must be more opportunities now for retail. I don't know what it's like for you guys watching this, but there's a lot of empty spaces in malls, and even in major cities. Yeah.
Even
so you probably have a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, and I think we sift through a lot of the opportunity to make sure that we're making some calculated decisions.
Got you. Okay, so a couple quick hits, then we're gonna go into our speed round. Cool. First pair of kicks you ever fell in love with?
Ooh,
like really love, not like I need these, but just you would kill to get them.
Honestly, I'll go back to the shoe that kind of got me into shoes in general. It was the Kevin Durant 5s. It was the home and away pack. That was way back, but I think the real one that pushed me into
not the Auntie Pearls.
No, funny enough, that
the flamingo
actually,
ones. That color is insane.
It like the on Pearls. I think it was the KD7. It was all white. It had a little angel wing as the strap. That one also really just propelled me. Even Kyrie shoes way back when he was with Nike. I think those really propelled me into it. And then, the Travis Scott OG lows, that was one of the first whoa, a guy came into the store and he wanted to trade for them. So we worked something out, and that shoe went straight to my feet. And that was my first big
I think I have those. Yeah, I have one of them up there.
Yep, exactly, that one. Yeah. So that was kind of the one that pushed me into it. But I would say it goes as early as the KD5s.
Okay. Most underrated sneaker silhouette. And we can always move along if you need to think about it.
Honestly, I would say Jordan 3s.
Jordan 3s. Grail you'll never, ever, ever sell.
Grail I'd never sell.
Footwear grail.
Ooh. Footwear grail I would never sell would have to be...
Mine would be the Dornbachers. Dornbachers right up there, the Supermans.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah. I would say the part of the 10-pack Off-White Nike Air Force Ones. Those first ones with the clear, translucent sole.
Oh, yeah, those are fire.
Those,
I wonder if a lot of people I don't know how many pairs they made, but I remember.
I doubt there's too many out there.
I never got them because I couldn't get them. I asked everyone I knew, and it was like impossible.
That one was a big one for me.
Okay, and then one final one for this part of the interview series is there a quote or something that you go back to in your mind to stay locked in every day? Because I know, you'll hear, developing your mindset and how to stay motivated. But for you, every day, I mean, 4 retail locations is a lot. You're managing employees, you're managing inventory. 5, sorry, I keep saying 4. 5. You can go back and someone DM me how many times I said 4, and I'll give you a free pair of shoes off this wall.
Wow.
Yeah. Sorry, it's really early.
No.
But is there, like, I have one that we can use in the video at some point when we edit. But is there something you go back to all the time that keeps you motivated and locked in?
Yes. I would say pretty much it's a single line. I kind of change how it's worded each time, but it's don't make decisions based off your mood, make decisions based off your dream. So, I think about this end goal, and
I had chills, like, for real.
I think
that was beautiful.
I think about this end goal a lot, and the end goal can change dramatically as life goes on, but as long as you keep your values close to you and make your decisions based off of those values, not not based off of the things that you're feeling and thinking at the moment, because those feelings and emotions are fleeting.
Mm-hmm.
And if you remember, you as a person, I think you make decisions a lot more authentically and more genuinely, in a more genuine manner, because you're thinking about your values and that end goal or that end dream that can be changing, and I think people need to understand that the end goal isn't always what you started off doing. Even
right.
as kids go to college, they always say, like, I'm not even doing what I went to college for.
Well, you started this right out of high school.
Yes.
Right.
So, it's a big, to that point, it was a big growth thing, a growth period. And I'm still, in a huge growth period. And I think combining business and being conscious that business and your personality can go hand in hand, and the growth in both can also go hand in hand, can help each other as well.
Right. I mean, so one final thing, and then we're going to wrap it up. So first, with 5 locations and having done this now 5 years, you're at the point, from my perspective, where, the changes, the growth trajectory moving forward, besides building the systems, is stepping into, like, what's my 3-year plan? How do I want to have a competitive advantage to grow this thing to scale? So then, I mean, why couldn't you someday acquire another sneaker store and roll them in? Because you're seeing stores closing now. These pairs are going somewhere. I mean, hopefully they're going back to their consigning, and the customers are going other places. So this is a really unique time, especially in the Boston retail landscape, to really take advantage of kind of differentiating yourself, but also making you the de facto place to go. And if you haven't been to Boston, come to Copley Place, right by the center of the Back Bay, which is the most highly retailed area in the city. Yes. They have an amazing store in a mall where you can spend mad bands in like 30 minutes. Yes. All right, so one, I want to thank you for stopping by this morning. We've been trying to get this together for a while, and he's got 5 stores to take care of, so it's hard to get him in here. And we're going to go to our lightning round.
Yes.
So when you get through this whole video, I want to thank you for going to our YouTube channel. Thank you for Kenan and your vision. A lot of good nuggets in this discussion, and I have to say I learned a lot about kind of the mindset and how you got into it. And I think it's really important to look at how you affect the culture and the people that come in, because not only are you trying to build a business financially, but you're trying to perpetuate why you got into it and your love of footwear and streetwear.
Yes, and I like to say, we kind of say this as like our it's for the culture. It's we fell in love with the culture back in even 2016, 2017, and, even before that, shoes in general. So I think, we're making our previous selves, our younger selves, happy by doing this too.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Of course.
Hey, this is Jonathan Epstein from Super Glorious.
Kenan Wilson of Courtside Kicks.
And you're watching the latest episode of
Partners
and Plugs.
Dope.